Hey guys, so another day is completely gone. It's super late. I should be home, but I'm still here at the office because, well, I'm feeling the pressure. I didn't record a video today, but doesn't mean that I can't record one before I go home. Check out what I managed to do earlier today. I took this off of the transmission and we plopped it up here on the table, and well, we can tear it down to see what it looks like and see what we can find inside. What do you guys think? Let's do it. Let's do it. So from the top, there's some screws over right here on the top. Took those off. So it seems like the only thing to do is to remove this cap now. Let's do it. Look at this. Look at this. So, this is the inlet. This is where the power comes in. Alright, that comes straight from that other box that we did the other day. Then this is the positive. Then this is the negative. And then that goes through this Hall effect sensor, right? Okay, I believe what this is, this is the feed, high voltage feed that goes into this section here. Look at that. It's got some of those little DC to DC things that I've seen before. I believe this is the DC. 300 and some odd volts in going here, whatever voltage pack goes in here, then that gets converted into 12 volts DC, and then it comes here, and there's another connector there. Right, so that board in the middle there, that's what it does. It's just a DC to DC. Now on this side, negative, and then positive. This positive goes right into that plate right there. The positive goes underneath the caps. These are the caps, and it goes into this side. I believe those go. It's a double-sided plate, and it goes into the positive and the negative from those two big capacitors. Can we tell what those capacitors are? 480 volts DC, and then it says 1800. What? 1800 UF. What is that? That's not picofarads? No, microfarads? I don't know what they are. Anyways. Big giant capacitors. Then from there it feeds into each one of these IGBTs. On the bottom you can see them there. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. And then on this side there's a post that comes off, and then it goes into each of the faces for the motor. And then there's a Hall effect sensor there also. Okay, so that each of those Hall effects goes onto this board right here. That's what those are. Those are the Hall effect sensors. There's some shielding thing here. These, I believe, are, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Those are, I believe, are the IGBT drivers. Right, they're kind of encased in this epoxy thing. Then this is the signal that goes on top here, and this should be the logic board. This is the control on part that has. This is the thing that we probably have to hack or replace and remove to put our own. Of course, we have a complete car, so we won't have to do that. We just have to connect it and see what part feeds that. And, you know, I don't know. We'll figure it out because we have a whole system. So then that is the encoder. So that's the encoder right there. Here are the three faces of the motor. Right, and we're kind of a little bit sloppy. Oh, here's the thing. Here's an inlet of water inlet, or liquid cooling inlet for the motor. Then it goes through the motor, and then I think it comes out through here, and then it goes through this loop here, and then it comes out over here, which is kind of weird because that means that the motor and the power electronics run at around the same temperature. I don't know what temperature that is, but I always thought that motors could run hotter than the electronics. So electronics are a little bit more temperature sensitive than the motors. At least with my motor, I know that it can operate up to 120 degrees Celsius, but I think the enamel on the windings has a rating of 200 degrees centigrade. So in theory, you can run it really high. The power electronics, they cut back at around 89 degrees, so they run at a lower temperature. This one, I think this motor might not be able to run hotter than that, and maybe that's the reason why it's running in the same loop. And so I don't know if this is a permanent magnet motor, but I think if it was a permanent magnet motor, I doubt it though, because if it was a permanent magnet motor, wouldn't it output more power? This is right now is capped at 30 kilowatts. That might be just because it's a tiny little car. Doesn't, you don't need much more than 30 kilowatts to get that. And with 18 kilowatts hours of battery, if you open it up and full power, because I believe the rating on this motor is 55 kilowatts. I don't know if it's the same on the inverter. Then you would go through those 18 kilowatt hours of battery really quickly. And I think, from what Michael told me, this little car goes about almost close to 100 miles of range with 18 kilowatt hours of battery. So the only way to do that is by kind of limiting the amount of power down to 30 kilowatts maximum, and lowering the speed. So here's the other crazy thing. That transmission is a single speed transmission. And so that means that motor has to be able to have torque spread out all the way to cover from 0 to 60 miles per hour. I was told that this car has a maximum speed of 60 miles an hour, and it would make sense if it's a tiny little motor and it's using a single gearbox. So the reason why this gearbox is so big is because this is the same transmission that is used on the gas cars. This car was kind of like a conversion that it was done at the factory, and so they are using the same components, the same transmission. All it is just missing all the other gears. It's missing, I quickly just did a turn here, and then kept track of the axle when it turns, and it seems like it's a 1 to 2. Wait, so 2 to 1, 2 to 1, 1 to 2. Yeah, 2 revolutions here to 1 revolution here. So 2 to 1 ratio, which would be what, 3rd gear? Probably, right? 4th gear is usually 1 to 1, so 1 RPM on the motors, 1 RPM on the axle. So that means it's a little bit lower. So I don't know, between second and third gear, probably third gear. That means this motor is it's gonna be torquey to be able to handle the RPMs, to be able to so that means it's geared really low. If that is the case, if that is true, if this is a 2-to-1 gear ratio, and the wheel has a 22, the wheel measures 22 inches side to side. Some quick math that we did earlier. At 60 miles an hour, it's going about 500 RPMs, I think, the wheel, which means the motor is going like 1,000 RPMs. I think that's correct. If I'm wrong, leave it down in the comments. 22 inches, that's how much that wheel measures. 2-to-1 ratio on the transmission here. Yeah, if those calculations are correct, that means that motor has all its torque concentrated from 0 to 1,000 RPMs, because the max RPM that it reaches is 1,000 when this little car is going 60 miles per hour, which, from what I hear, it's the top speed of this car. I guess I can charge the 12-volt battery was dead on this thing, so I'm charging it right now. I tested the EVSE that I'm installing in here quickly just to see if this will take some charge, and I couldn't get it to work. So I'm gonna take it home tonight. I'm gonna test it on my plug at home, on my NEMA 1450 that I know works, with my Chevy Volt that I know works. If I can't get it to charge, then it's the EVSE there's something wrong with it, so I'm gonna ship it back. If it works, then that means it's something. Maybe this car, the batteries got so low that now I'm gonna have to figure out how to get the voltage up on the battery pack before we can actually charge it through, just regularly by plugging it in. Yeah, that's what's going on here. Yeah, it seems like because they had to use existing motor mounts, right? Because this car was also made for regular gas engines. Then I think they went kind of messy in here. I mean, they didn't pack all these electronics as tightly as they could have if it was, a standalone unit. So as a result, you can see a bunch of space there and stuff. But it's pretty simple, and it's a liquid-cooled controller. What I want to figure out how to do is first, what I want to do is make an adapter plate, or get this one running, right? Get it running, get the extra computer that we need, get all the wiring that we need to get this running. Then make an adapter plate, so we can strap this into a BW transmission, and then see if it's got enough torque. I mean, yeah, it should be. If it runs a little car like that in a single gear, it should be able to run a BW with multiple gears, no problem. You start on third, and then you put it on fourth, and to go on highways and stuff. Should be able to. Of course, we won't really know exactly. I don't, until we gonna do it, and we have all the parts here to do it. We have plenty of cars here to try it on. That's gonna be the project here on this guy, because there's a bunch of these available, and right now they don't have any use legally. They cannot be sold as a working unit, so we have to like hack this basically, so that they can work with another, sort of like the Tesla things that everyone is trying. Same thing has to happen with this, but there are, I want, from what I heard, there's thousands of these now in the thousands. It used to be like 500 of them, but I heard there's more that became available, so there's a lot of them. And then the other thing that I want to do is, let's say if this works and it has the torque, I read somewhere in the specs that it has got like 91 pound-feet of torque or so, 94 pound-feet of torque. Then all of a sudden, because we haven't actually ordered the motors for this guy, then this becomes a contender. I mean, if there's so many of these available and we can get them to work, then, you know, what I want to do is like unscrew these guys, and then this plate comes off, and then you separate the motor from the controller, and then there's a shaft in there. We can, you know, figure out how to bolt another motor in the back here. So in this size, you have one motor or two motors with you know, 180, theoretically 180, maybe 200 pound-feet of torque. And if that's the case, then maybe we can use one of those for that, and then we can use two back there so that it does the back end, right, the back wheels, and then we can throw one over here in front and do, you know, for the front wheel, so there's like a four-wheel drive, back to a four-wheel drive, and we could possibly do that cheaper than going the other way that we were going to do it, because, you know, these are not as expensive. I don't know. It's super late. I wanted to do something for you guys to see. This is the Zytek 55 kilowatt controller and motor that somehow is throttled back down to 30 kilowatts. We don't know why that is. We don't know if it's in the software, but this is what it looks like. Big giant capacitors. Oh, look at that thing. What is that? Output. Oh, that's the little thing that feeds the IGBT drivers. Look, it's got plus and negative 15 volts DC, 1 amp, and it has a big one like that. That's just a DC to DC. Nice. It's funny that I get to recognize all this just because, well, it's almost like that charger that I was messing around and trying to work on. Which, by the way, it's still an ongoing project. I just haven't touched it for like a year. Someday we'll get back to it whenever I find time. Yeah. That's the Zytek. All right, I'm getting out of here. It's too late. Let's go home. See you guys tomorrow.
We'll be back next week at this same time.
No, what is that? No, I don't like that.
Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to leave some comments below. If you like what I'm doing, don't forget to subscribe to our channels. Also think about becoming our patron by following the Patreon link. And don't forget to follow me on social media. All right guys, see you guys tomorrow.